The quick writing is a time of no threat, of very little threat, because they know that they can't make a mistake. I know they can be writers, and I'm expecting them to be writers, and they want to be writers, so the challenge is certainly there. There is something amongst it that excites them. Haven't we had a turn from this round? Sam. I believe that children need purpose, and their purpose in the reading that we do, and that they hear such powerful texts. They know their purpose. They are very clear about wanting to be able to articulate and write in a way that can do the same sorts of things as authors do.
That was strange. I was in a mirror room. Now I'm in the park. What a strange.
But there's also the purpose of that we've all got a message to tell, we've all got a story to tell, and those things are highly valued. I believe children need powerful frameworks and structures within which to work, and I would hope that the different structures that I provide through reflecting on their writing, reflecting on themselves as writers, on structures of editing, on ways of publishing, provide frameworks for those things.
You can express your ideas and your imagination on pieces of paper, and you get a lot down. Once you get an idea, you can build onto that, and that's what I think is good about it.
Oh, it's just exciting of all the topics that Miss Callan gives to us that we have to write down.
It helps you write stories, and it can improve your writing.
Oh, it's fun to jot down all your ideas in those minutes and reading them out to the class. It also lets you let your imagination write it down instead of just thinking it. It's just fun.
Well, it's fun because you can use some strong words. You can use your imagination more.
I like it because it's exciting and you get to let your imagination go.
That there is collaboration between them, they all see themselves as writers, and that they can learn from each other is an important belief. I had read some articles about quick writing, and I'd also heard an author talk about quick writing as a way that he used to move into his subconscious without being faced with that blank page of what do I write. So the idea behind it is that children, or the writer, is given some warm-up time of a minute with a word that triggers memory, triggers experience, triggers thoughts. The pencil or pen is not allowed to stop, and you keep writing those thoughts. Let whatever's there come out. So we have a minute of time with a word, then we have maybe 2 or 2.5 minutes of writing, but after each piece of writing, each experience, I ask children to share.
Inside I see a stone. It was yellow with wires connected to it.
I expect that all children during the writing session share at least once, and they have the choice of sharing all that they've written, or a phrase that they came out with, or an idea or a word that surprised them. Only trouble is I want to know more. I want to know, like yours, to be continued. I want to know what's happened. Is it something that you would continue? Yes, fantastic. When I started working with this class at the beginning of the year, I asked the children to tell me about themselves as writers, so the kinds of things they like to write, the kinds of things that they feel that they're good at in writing. I gave them an about me as a writer checklist and got them to give me feedback about themselves as writers. One of the things that came out of was that children were feeling that they were good at particular genres of writing, or they felt as though they knew many of the structures of writing, but they'd actually now tired of having to write in a particular form, that they didn't want to write another persuasive piece, they didn't want to write another letter, they didn't want to write another narrative in the structure that they had been given. They knew that the world of writing was far broader than that, and whilst they had concentrated on structures, they didn't feel that they were getting messages through that they'd wanted to write about.
Strange sense, strange surroundings, suspiciously, scarily strange, frightening.
So my challenge was to think, how can I give children a positive writing experience that actually let them write from the well that they already had? How could we also draw on the subconscious, all those things that were buried away that they may have taken in from books that they'd read, that they knew techniques that they weren't really aware of, and to open them up more to the world of the author, to the writer. Every writer has something that they are passionate about writing, and I wanted children to find that same passion about something that they wanted to write about, and in a way that didn't follow a particular format. We talk in these sessions too about different techniques that writers use, and one of the main things we think about is what is it that the writer does to catch the reader's attention.
I came and I watched as he limped slowly towards the harbour.
So we've looked at writing techniques. So we've looked at things like alliteration and metaphors and similes. We've looked at the way we can repeat words. Where do we place the reader for a start? In what context? In what place? In what time? In what circumstance?
Okay, what does Chris Van...
The writing techniques are integral because it's part of reading, because it's part of writing. It's integral. It comes up in spelling, it comes up in looking at non-fiction texts. How does the reader place us in a non-fiction text? So the children are quite aware of authors and writers, and certainly think of themselves as authors and writers.
I've seen a change in what he wrote from the beginning of the year to what he's writing now. So initially he was writing very concrete information about the word that was given to them to write about. And now there's a higher level of language being expressed in his writing which wasn't being expressed before, and not something that I necessarily hear him use in his conversational language either, which is quite interesting because he doesn't talk about those types of abstract thoughts unless I really encourage him to or ask him specifically about that, some of those abstract ideas. He tends still to express himself verbally in a much more concrete way, but his writing is showing the ability to have, express abstract thought, which has been really positive.
This is sort of writing down what you think, and just sort of it doesn't really matter what it is, if it's a story or if it's a poem or a rhythm or anything's good.
I've noticed that for a lot of children that their early writing is quite literal, and that they're writing about very everyday sorts of things or very structured sorts of things. The more we do this, the more they listen to others writing, and the more they tune in to the read alouds and to the book experiences that they're having, the more they're able to draw on more abstract thoughts, more and use language in particular ways that they don't use in their everyday. The children use their draft writing book for the quick writing sessions. We've actually flipped our book to have so all their quick writing stays together. It's a great way for children to see how they've progressed over time. I put the word up on the board for them, and they don't need to put the title in here. They begin immediately. And so I can see the kinds of patterns of how they've changed over time because their quick writing is together. So I can see that we start with the word that I'd given. He's now moved into trying to place the reader somewhere different other than using the word to get his thoughts across.
I haven't ever been really confident that he's got that really good high-level language and thinking and problem-solving there at times, and perhaps that's just because I'm his mother. It's more obvious now in his writing that he does have those skills, so that's been pleasing to see.
For Harriet, in the early stages of the quick writing, I was able to put in that she can build up excitement in a story, including interesting detail, and I can see that through all the examples of quick writing that she's doing that consistently. I can see that she's using repetition for emphasis, so let's all be very, very quiet. She uses that in her writings. But it's also the purpose of these for children to be able to look at these things for themselves and to reflect on their own writing and to think what techniques are they using in their writing. So how do we go about editing our piece of quick writing for publication? They can use the symbols. This came from the Rigby materials some time ago. So add a letter or a word, add a comma, add a full stop, start a new paragraph. So they are in control of their writing, not only in their ideas, but also in their editing. Some children do still look for support, and we negotiate that on a term by term or week by week basis of what are you now ready to be taking on for yourselves. Right, I'm now ready to, I think I'd like to, when I'm editing my work now, think about, can I divide my work into paragraphs? Where is a child ready? But this gives them the framework to think about the kinds of things that they can move on to in their editing. Just been an initial way of publishing their work, where I gave each child a book of coloured card, black cover that they've decorated, and they have pasted into this book writing that they have published. The children were so interested in receiving this coloured booklet of card, but one of my initial reasons for doing this was because in being able to stick in the pieces of paper as they published, if they did make a mistake, they could start that bit again and stick the next new one in. There wasn't this pressure to rewrite a huge block of writing, and if in making an error it spoilt their writing for them. The shorter pieces also give them the chance to think about layout, to think about how they want to set this piece out, to think about doing that in different ways. There's less to think about than if I've got a 2-page story that I'm wanting to rewrite and to share.
I hope I'll be healthy and strong. I hope I'll get good scores in Year 12. I hope all my hopes will come true. I hope. That's right.
Hearing and reading texts for themselves is an important part of them developing as writers. I purposely set up a read aloud program where I read to children each day, and I'm very specific about the kinds of texts that I use during that time. Right, this week's quick writing, we're going to start with a story again. Last time we used the steps up the chimney to do that because we were looking at William Corlett's writing, and we had the scene about the forest, and then we used the word forest as one of our words to write about. So today we're not going to use William Corlett's writing, and we're going to look at the writing of another author called Chris Van Allsburg. Now he's a writer and an illustrator, and some of you will know his work because some of you will have seen the movie. When we have a lesson, a one-off lesson here, a one-off lesson in writing, a one-off lesson in a story that might be read, a one-off lesson that looks at a list of words, these things don't create writers, don't create readers, don't create users of words who can see the overriding purpose on that. These are school purposes. These lessons of a lesson of writing, because we need to have a lesson of writing fitted in here. That's a school purpose. It's not a child's purpose for writing. Hearing a story, a one-off story that doesn't allow them to explore themselves, their world and others, and link it to what the writer of that story is on about, unless it's done that way, it's a school purpose. It's not allowing the child to grow with that. He invited me to have a seat and listen to his strange tale.
In our village years ago, he said, there was a boy who could sail a boat better than any man in the harbour. He could find a breeze over the flattest sea. When dark clouds kept other boats at anchor, the boy would sail out, ready to prove to the villagers, to the sea itself, how great a sailor he was.
All these things can only be valued when we give them the time for the children to value what it is that they're able to achieve as well. So they're finding far greater range of purposes for their writing, and they have certainly become authors in the true sense of the word, of not just being able to write, but being able to say things in a way that makes a difference to others.